Welcome to Reaching New Heights with Troy Bell, the city manager, City of Muskegon Heights, where you get to know what you need to know so you'll be in the know. So I'm happy that everybody is with us today here, and that all the accolades that people have heaped on, not just to me, but to the city in general, with all the great things that are going on. Again, thank you very much. It would be remiss of me, again, not to say thanks. Thanks to the mayor, thanks to the city council, thanks to the vision of the city and the direction that we're going on. Even though we've hit a few bumps in the road, and Lord knows that our roads need to be addressed, and that's something that has not gone without being noticed and as a top priority. But aside from the bumps in the road, we have continued to push through it as a people who are resilient, people who are resourceful, who are able to survive under the worst possible conditions to be able to thrive in the future. That is what Muskegon Heights is, a city of friendly people. And I have said over and over numerous times that I'm happy to be welcomed here with open arms, warmly into this community. Happy that I can come in with a fresh set of eyes and say, the citizens of Muskegon Heights deserve better. That's just it, flat as I can say it. The city of Muskegon Heights residents deserve better. And the reason why they have not had better is because of the failure or the lack of ability to provide services on the level that this community deserves. And we are working towards that. And I'm happy, and you've heard me say excited, that we are taking those steps in the positive direction to be able to accomplish that. You look around and you might not see today what makes you feel as though things have changed. But if you took note and count of the things that have occurred over the last 2 years, you have to be honest and say, this wasn't like that before. And granted, we had a pandemic, something the world has never seen before, something this country has never seen before, and I would venture to say no community in the United States has had to navigate and deal with. We did not know if the sky was falling or not. We did not know if tomorrow was going to come, and if it did come, what it was going to bring. And so that uncertainty is something that we had to deal with and that we had to work through. And everybody who's ever led or managed a community understands that uncertainty is the enemy of progress and success. But it is also an opportunity. And so with every difficult situation that we encounter, we have to understand that each and every one of those situations is an opportunity or comes with an opportunity. And as bad as the pandemic was, and Corona and still is, as we're still dealing with it, as bad as it was not to be able to engage with, to be new in a community, not be able to get out and touch and feel and talk and hear and listen, and in order to learn and to lead, as bad as that was, one of the silver linings is that with the lost revenues that we experienced, we have an opportunity, an entitlement to spend $10.6 million. And in the past, the government has made money available, but all of that money has typically been competitive in nature, which means a small community like ours, who doesn't have a grant writer, has to get into that fishbowl with everybody else and fight it out to try to make the argument to justify why we should be granted those grant funds that are out there. With the pandemic, the funds that came available to rescue local municipalities to spend money in order to make money, to address the lost revenue issues, to fill the gaps in the budget, are opportunities that are once in a lifetime opportunities. Just like the water treatment modifications that we're doing and in order to improve the drinking water situation, the lead service line in particular, lead service line replacement is a once in a lifetime situation because of the fact that we are able to use grant funding to be able to replace those lead service lines. It's something that the governor has said that we have to do. We have 20 years to do it at a rate of 5% per year. 20 years, we get 100% of all the lead service lines. But for the quality of the drinking water, it's a necessity. But here's the thing that is the difference maker. It means that we are going to, and thus far, have received grant funding to touch every single parcel house in Muskegon Heights. That is something that will never happen in a lifetime. Not in our lifetimes. To be able to get grant funding to go out and touch and physically touch every single house in Muskegon Heights. And that is where the opportunity for a smart city comes from, because if we're going to get grant funding to go out there to every single parcel, every single house, we might as well do a whole bunch of stuff while we're there that is cheaper to do while we're there than if we had to leave and come back. But that's a whole nother conversation. That we can talk about at some point in time. But going back to the original precept, let's think about the things that have happened. We have street lights that are on. Not all of them are on, but none of the street lights were on before. We have over $30 million worth of grant funding that's come in. $30 million. Now, what do grant funds mean? That means that you get work that's done. I mean, obviously, that's what the grant is there to pay for. But the multiplicative values of grant funding are income tax. We have an income tax here. Anytime we do work, that means that we are getting income tax. And anytime we get grant work, which is above and beyond what we were doing, that's an increase in income tax. Otherwise, we're increasing the value of our property. Our property, because we are renewing it, we are improving it, we are investing in it. The value of Muskegon Heights as a community is going up with these grants that we're talking about. Property values, anytime we do work on property values are going to increase. So all of these things are part of, I forgot to mention, permits. Anytime that we do work, permits are associated with it. If you look at our inspections department, for the first time in a long time, the inspection department projects to make money as opposed to lose money. And we have been subsidizing the cost of inspections for a long time. And again, there are things that we still need to do to get to where we need to be so that our building, zoning, inspections, and planning is where it needs to be. But we're moving in the right direction, and these things are evidence of change. Like I said, $30 million worth of grant funding. Business licenses. There are business people who have been entities who have been doing business in Muskegon Heights for years. One business for 30 years and never, ever paid for a business license. A prominent business has done well. Never filed for, received, or paid for a business license. And we need to set that standard. Anytime you do business in the city of Muskegon Heights, you have to obtain a business license. You have to pay for, in that license, the inspections, fire inspection, and a building inspection. That's revenue over the last 30 years that has been invisible to our community. And for the first time, we're beginning to attack some of those issues, and we're beginning to find those entities out there. Vacant lots. We have lots that are out there that, I'm sorry, I said vacant, but structures that are out there that should be on the tax roll that have not been on the tax roll for years. That is fundamentally one of our biggest challenges is our property tax basis. We don't have enough property tax revenues coming in. We have lost a large part of our tax base. And so tax base is typically what you use to pay for and fuel services that you provide to the citizens. That's the social contract that we talk about. In exchange for leadership and leading and all the services that come with it, we agree to be taxed as a people. And so there are those people who are not paying their fair shares. And if you're out there and you're one of those people that faithfully pays for your taxes every year, it's got to gull you. It's got to upset you that there's these properties out there, these lots, these structures that have been persisting for years and have not paid a dime of property tax. And we are identifying those. This again comes back to our systems. Our systems are old and antiquated and they need to be updated. And these are the funds that we are missing because we're working with broken down tools in the city of Muskegon Heights. I also talked about I didn't mention foreclosed properties. The last 2 years, it's not been done in other areas of the country for the most part, and they're looking to us as leaders in this. But the ability to exercise our first right of refusal so that when property is foreclosed on, instead of it going to the Treasury and the Treasury to the land bank, and the land bank doing what they will, regardless of what the objectives are of the community. And I understand that oftentimes the land bank tries to align themselves with what the community is doing, but it is not the community, and they understand that, and we need to understand that, and that's why there is value in us in taking hold of our own destiny as a community, as a city, and exercising our right of refusal to receive, pay for, and receive those foreclosed properties back, and make them available to people who live in Muskegon Heights first. And if not, if they don't sell on that first auction to citizens or businesses in Muskegon Heights, and the next auction is open to everybody. And then after that, at least we still own the property if we've exercised our right of refusal, and then we're in a position to determine the destiny of those properties. And part of that destiny is the developer's agreement. We have instituted a developer's agreement that says that if you receive property, vacant lots, in Muskegon Heights, it's an expedited process. You have to build on it in 3 years. You have to make sure that you keep it clean, that you maintain it, and if you're going to build on it, you got to bring three things. And you've heard me talk about this before. You got to bring credit repair. You got to make sure that the credit that the people applying for those properties is stellar. So you got to be willing to repair it, and you got to be willing to mentor the people who are coming to buy those properties for up to 3 years, and you got to offer access to down payment assistance. This is the bridge from renting to owning. This is how we maintain the fiber of our community. This is how we buffer and refute gentrification displacement. That's how we keep our community but still prosper in our community. And so asking developers to come in to do that, and the development agreement, that agreement didn't exist before we came aboard. It didn't exist when we got here, and now it is here. And we are asking folks to build within 3 years. I've only been here for 3 years, but we're asking those folks who buy to put a structure on it within 3 years. And some people might argue, well, 3 years is a long time. Well, if it may or may not be in the minds of some folks, but realize that there was nothing happening before to vacant lots. And now we have something happening, and we're asking for people to begin their building within that 3-year period. And so, fortunately, we've been able to bring those items to council. They didn't pass the first few times, even though council approved the process. But eventually, we are understanding the value and importance of building in our community and reconstituting our property tax basis. And so that is something that has been new, the developer agreement. And then with all the grants that we're bringing in, there's never been a requirement in the contracts to incentivize local hire. I don't understand why, but going forward, what we have done thus far since I've come here is require that there be language in every contract to incentivize hiring locally. And as we move forward on hiring locally, we're looking at ways that we might be able to incentivize contractors, those people who are beneficiaries of these grant funds, to come do work in Muskegon Heights by having to hire locally. And the incentives associated with that, because that is a tax revenue for us. So if it is a tax revenue, why not put some money out there to incentivize it? The vacant building fee, that's been on the ordinance, on the books since 2009. People either have to do something with their property or pay for the property. This is not new to Muskegon Heights. This exists in multiple communities across the country. It's been on our books since 2009, and for the first time, we're beginning to enforce that. That is development. That is the beginning of accomplishment. So all of these things, I mean, we were able to approve of the fire truck. That is progress. I'm sad to say, and I'm going to bring on two guests here, the mayor and the mayor pro tem here, and I want to welcome them to our show. One of our biggest challenges is the approval of the budget. We had a meeting on December 19th, and unfortunately, at that meeting, we were not able to receive the necessary votes to approve the budget. And I have invited the mayor and the mayor pro tem to come on. Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mhm. And the mayor pro tem, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Bill.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I appreciate the fact that you guys are busy and that you're in the middle of your days and you're taking time out of your days while you're on the road to be part of this show. But I thought, and I'm sure you would agree, that is important. The passage of the budget is critical to the survival of this community, the survival of this organization. And so it's important for you to be able to join us to talk about what people may not understand. And I think sometimes folks, and I'm going to say this and listen to your comments of it, that I think sometimes folks confuse having a critical eye on the way that money is spent, which is important. We need to have a critical eye on that kind of stuff. But that gets confused with the requirement, the state requirement, the statutory requirement, the charter requirement that says the council shall approve a budget every year that has more revenues than expenses, that shows what the priorities are of how the council projects that they would like to spend money in the new year. And that's one of the things I think that folks get confused, one with the other. And we can talk about what I found when I got here, because there are a lot of things that we've kind of glossed over. You know, the fact that the finance department doesn't exist, that we had some issues when we came on board, but I'll get into that later. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts about the importance of the budget, as well as that confusion between passing a budget and how money is spent.
Well, thank you, Mr. Bell,
Sure.
for having me on the show. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I got a little echo. Hold on. All right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
If you're using Bluetooth or your car stereo, we might be getting some feedback. I'm getting some notes from the people on the show that
so should I turn Bluetooth on?
yeah. See how it sounds, and then we'll try to work from there. No, I think he's coming back on.
Bluetooth is not on.
Okay, you're good then. Let's see what we got.
I don't know where it is.
We can hear you now, Mayor.
Okay. Well, the budget is vitally important.
Okay, I think we lost the mayor. That was breaking up. So, Mayor Pro Tem,
All right.
can you jump in?
Yeah, I can.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have any feedback from me?
No, it sounds good so far.
Okay. Yeah. So how important the budget is to pass. It is a projected budget. So we know that there are some things that we want to see corrected. There are some things that we want to see different in our budget, which is always, no matter what business, no matter where you are, what state, what county, what municipality, there are some things that everyone would see in the budget that you may not like, that you want to see change and adjusted. So what we're saying to our council and to all the even community, understand what's there. We need to pass a balanced budget. If we see some things that is not there, we've had over a month now to go over and to look at our budget and to state to our city manager what we wanted to see done. And we have yet to do so. And now here we are at the 9th hour, and we still haven't done that. I don't think we're doing our due diligence of doing that. There are some things that we are looking at, as Mr. Bill, you stated. There's nothing to hide from our community. Our community needs to know. We are far behind in our finance department. We're still balancing books from in October, trying to get things done. Mr. Bell, if you were trying to hide something, you wouldn't have asked the state to come in to help fix the problems. So let's put it out there where we really are with our books, where we really are in our city. We have consultants that's coming in, fixing our departments for a reason. We are so far behind, we're still in the ice ages dealing with day-to-day operational businesses. We can't continue to operate like we were in the 70s and in the 80s. Contrary to what people are saying, Muskegon Heights, we are moving in a better direction. And the only way that we're going to continue to get there, number one, is to pass our budget. We have to. There are numbers in there. You talked about it, and I think some of I said in our meeting, all of us as council, there are some line items there that we can't get the exact totals from. And we're looking at the consultants to come in and to share that information with us. Unfortunately, they're not able to do that at the time frame that we need it done. However, our first meeting in January, they're going to be online to on Zoom to give us that information. And we have demanded and expecting that they come in person at our second meeting, I think January 23rd, to come in person to answer all questions from council, not some, to give us all the information, factual information about what has been going on, where money is, where money has been, how it has been moved around. And there's nothing to hide. We don't want any council member or any citizen to go and not have our questions answered. And that is a mandate. So can we do that right now? No, it is unfortunate. We all get that. But we can't stop the movement of our city because of that. We have to move forward. We have to go for it. We talked about the $30 million in grants. We're talking about where's the revenue? Where we don't see any improvements. Well, we got $30 million or plus in grants. We have water line replacements that are going to, I don't want to use the word finna, that's going to change the look of our city and our streets. So we have been able to put things together so that when they're replacing lead lines, our streets are going to be changed. So the South Heights are going to look different starting in the spring. We're going to see some things different. We see the downtown development that's coming up. That's $13+ million coming on Broadway just by itself. We have a multi-million dollar project that's looking at the King School area site. We have the Peck Street project that is going on. All of these things are improvements to the city of Muskegon Heights. We sold at least 18 houses that I know of in this past year that are back on the tax roll. So they're back on the tax roll. That means there's water usage there. That means their electricity, that's all those things are going. We talked about inspection now being self-sufficient, that had not been self-sufficient over the past years. That is because of the implementation that you put in, Mr. Bell, and you have all of your department heads agreeing and working with you, regardless of us as council members want to see you in a daily briefing with your department heads for 2 hours or 3 hours out of the day. We don't like it, but it's working. The process is working. So when inspections are able to be self-sufficient and able to bring in positive revenue in so many years, we're moving in the right direction. Whether it's $1, whether it's $1,000, it is progress. Muskegon Heights, we are going in a positive direction. We have new houses being built already. I advise some of people. I just left Mr. Bell over on Jarman and Barney. Go ride past there. Wow, that is a beautiful house over there. It is, and just go through. There's renovation of houses. Let's not just talk about the houses that's going to be built. Let's talk about some of the houses that's being renovated that's going back on the tax roll. So there's a lot of positive things. Do we have staffing issues? Yes, we do. Do we have finance? Do we have HR issues? Yes, we do. but we're trying to improve it. I say to all of us, we have to get out of that no, no, no mentality and get into that yes mentality that we believe, we see, and we know things can be changed. We have to be optimistic. We have to believe in these things. I know some people say, man, why do you, I wish I could see some of the things you see. Well, I'm very optimistic. I'm business minded for a reason. It is because if you think negative, negative things happen, negative things follow. But if you think positive, positive things will come to play. We are the vision, we are the face of our children. If our children don't see us thinking and behaving and doing positive things, then what are we giving them for our future? So we got a lot of things that's happening. Like we talked about our income tax, our property taxes, those are things are increasing. What we do want to see different is more businesses come in. Nobody want to talk about, we say, well, we talk about businesses. Well, how are we going to bring revenue? Well, if we don't build houses, which is an important part, how are we going to get revenue? If we don't have businesses coming in, how do we don't have revenue? So, Mr. Bell, you do have your tasks ahead of you for businesses. We want to see major businesses come in. But one thing that I noticed different and listening and talking to other municipalities and community leaders outside of Muskegon Heights is that you do sit down, you're talking to them, you're inviting them in, you're taking ideas and thoughts from others that have already done the things that we're doing in the city of Muskegon Heights. One of the things I looked at when we look at the vacant lots, we look at everything that's happening around Muskegon Heights. Guess what? We are a valued piece of product right now. A very valued piece of product right now in the city of Muskegon Heights, because everybody else have probably almost reached their max of where they can go, of what they can do, how they can build, how they can bring more infrastructure in. But the city of Muskegon Heights, we are a diamond in the rough. And Mr. Bell, what I'm excited and I'm proud about, and that you are not just sitting idle, you're talking with these people. You're actually meeting with important people and bringing those thoughts and ideas back to us as council. Whether we like it or not, we should not stun the growth of Muskegon Heights because we may not like the personality or the person. We ought to be able to move forward because of the thoughts and ideas that are coming and being brought to us as a council. So that is my big spiel on things. I like the fact that we're constantly talking about local hiring through our grants. I love that because, again, we've always had people talk about it, but then when it comes down time to making it happen, it doesn't. But you've been very, very instrumental in making sure that we are looking to hire from within. Now, we can't make people apply, and we can't make people be qualified to apply, but what we can do is give opportunities and chances. With our youth, we're giving them. I love what the police chief is doing with our guns program, things that are partnering up with the city to help curb the violence and other things that are happening in our city. These are things that you have brought in, you're constantly pushing and promoting. What I'm happy is that you and Mayor Watt are continuing to see a different vision. We had that pandemic, yes, and we know that put us behind for 2 years. But guess what? Those 2 years were idle years. But guess now, looking into this third year, you, Mayor, the citizens will be able to see what you guys have been trying to do these past few years. So I say when spring comes, look at the roads, look at all the plows, look at all the trucks coming in, and it's going to be up Broadway, going to be on the south side, going to be up Peck Street, going to be inside the city. Look at it. But we have to give the opportunity. Let's not be like Moses and go and look over the promised land. Let's walk there into the promised land and believe and make a change. So again, I'm going to stop there because I see Mayor came back on. So I'm going to stop, Mr. Bill, unless you had a question for me.
Thank you, Bro Tim. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? guys hear me? I heard Pro Tem.
Has identified what categories that you wanted to use and how much money you wanted to put in each of those categories. That is effectively the same thing, the same function as the budget. The importance of the budget and what the state is asking us to do is, first of all, the city manager has to provide a balanced budget, a proposed balanced budget to council. Council then has to look at that budget and say, is this reflective of the priorities that we have? Do we want to spend money in these categories? And do we expect to have this amount of revenue come in these categories? And at the end of the day, is there more revenues than expenses? That is what the state is asking us to do, just like what the council has already done for the American Rescue Plan. It is a document that projects what you think are your priorities for the future year. Spending on the previous year is a whole separate issue that is not what the state is focused on when they ask for a budget. And that's what I think that's the part that we get confused. Mayor, are you with us now?
Yeah, and I might lose you guys. Hopefully, I don't. But the budget is a lot of. I hope people aren't mistaken. Budget for Mayor Watt, Mr. Ben, anybody.
You're breaking up, Mayor.
I hope everyone understands. Budget is not for Mayor Watt or city manager or Pro Tem. The budget is for the citizens of Muskegon Heights. If we don't pass a budget, services cannot be provided. It's that simple. Nothing can happen. We cannot do anything. And I
To you, Mayor Pro Tem, on January 1, based on what the statute says, based on what the charter says, based on what the city attorney is telling us, which is similar to what the city attorney said last year, what is going to be the status if the budget is not passed?
And I think what Mayor was trying to say, and he was incorporating, was that if we do not pass the budget, services for our citizens would not be able to be rendered. So yes, police and firemen cannot picket, they cannot do those things, but contractual services and things, street plowing, garbage pickup, those types of things, city workers, those people will be halted with their pay. So we can't afford. Some people live day to day, paycheck to paycheck, and we are held accountable. Yes, it is a projected budget to move forward, not dealing, as you stated, city manager, not dealing with what we talked about last year, but where we foresee our things going for this year, line items to line items, going in there. And we have had multiple chances of sitting down, asking those questions and making those adjustments. I don't care if we got to stay in there for 4 or 5 hours. We need to do that. However, even if we don't come to a full agreement right now, our budget still can be amended afterwards. We just need to pass a budget to give to the state to say this is a balanced budget, but yet at the same time, we can come back in January as a full council and make adjustments to our budget. And all I'm saying, city manager, is, and to council, if January come or February, whatever date we set in the month to come and revisit the issues or the items that we have issues with, all I'm saying is that we revisit that and we spend those 3 or 4 hours in the meeting to get it finalized, to get it the exact way we want it. Let's not hold up progress where the state is requiring. The state is not going to come in and play with us. We don't want to even challenge that. Let's not challenge that. So again, if any of us know of our council, come and check me, come and talk to any of us. Sit down with us, not go over and harass, but to encourage us to do the right thing for the city and for the citizens. And when you get a time, or even citizens, if you get time or you get moment and you want to get a better understanding of the budget, talk to the city manager and get a better understanding. Let's not go on these falsehoods and information that is not given.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep,
Yep,
I
All
can
I
hear
can
you.
hear
right,
you.
I got booted out there. So, I mean, I do want to say this. It looks like from what the city attorney said, and the city attorney said last year, and I quote, that after the first of the year, there will be no expenses for anything other than police and fire, and even then, they cannot strike, but no funds can be expended to pay for police and fire. And so, and that's a quote, quote unquote. Um, what that means is if we don't have a budget that's passed, then I'm not in a position as the city manager to pay for anything. That means that City Hall would be closed. That means that any of the workers at DPW uh, would not be expected to come into work because there's no funds to pay them. If police and fire do work, which they should work, it has to be an IOU, and then also it means that the folks that work at the filtration plant would be um, not required to come to work. So all those things would be. I mean, does that mean that there'd be no water? Yep, all of those things. So we have to be mindful of that, and that's why when the state says we just need a projection of a balanced budget every year, that that's what they're asking for. That's not a statement saying that you validate spending or don't validate spending. That's what the audit is for. The audit says, with finality, this is how money was spent. Was more money spent than more than what was brought in? And I'm happy to say, looking at the budget, that we budgeted that $335,781 was going to be what we were in the positive in the year 2022. And as it stands of today, we're looking at a positive budget of $1.7 million. So even though we don't know exactly where, because things are not in the right place, because we don't have what I would like to have, which is a properly running finance department, it looks as though revenues are going to exceed expenses, and that puts us in a positive position, a better position than we were last year.
Mr. Bill,
Mr. Bill,
Yes.
and I know a
and I
lot of
know a lot of
times we
times
have
we have
people
people
talking
talking
about
about
ARPA.
ARPA.
Well, that's
Well, that's
because we
because we
received the
received the
ARPA
ARPA
money. That's
money. That's
because we
because
did
we
this.
did this.
Hmm.
That's why the state
Provided ARPA money.
provided ARPA money was for cities or municipalities such as ourselves to be able to go and to be able to financially be stable, that we don't go under. So when we're thinking about that from a business standpoint, that is what ARPA was for. So whether we see a positive 1 point something million, and that is because ARPA money is included, we ought to be thankful to God that we were able to get that type of money so that we could continue to operate. We could continue to pay for fire service. We could continue to pay for water services and police services and DPW services and so on and so on. But that's what it's about. We ought not to be looking at anything else besides where we are currently. Yes, when we're talking about our future, well, when ARPA is done, what is our projected goal? What do we see? Well, go back to what we just said. We're selling houses now. We had 18 this year, something like that. So we're selling houses. We're building new houses. Our inspection is finally doing what they're doing. Over the years, I mean, all of us and the citizens wanted to have freebies. All of us as citizens think that we're privileged not to have to pay for certain services or not to have to pay for certain things. Unfortunately, city operates off funds that are generated from citizens, funds that are generated from our property taxes, from our working taxes. So at the end of the day, we have to look at it from a business standpoint that we are going to do things different. Bill, it would be different if I didn't see this $13 million project that's coming up on Broadway. If I didn't see that we were having communications with the possible new casino coming in, if I didn't see this Peck Street project moving and houses being torn down, if I didn't see and have and understand investors coming in to redo this King site project, if I didn't hear and see this Glendale site wanting to be relooked at again, if I didn't know that these things were happening and able to see holes dug for new property, then I would probably say, Mr. Bell, you're not the right city manager, but for the city of Muskegon Heights. However, these things that I just mentioned are things that not only I see, but anybody with eyes outside of Stevie Wonder, he don't see it, but he will be able to feel it because he feels the things that goes on around him. He feels positive energy when it's around him. So we're focusing ourselves on the positive things and moving the negative energy out. So those that are spiritual understood what I just said.
And let me just say, too, and I've talked about this before on the show, that there was a lot of good things that were happening in Muskegon Heights before. The challenge that we had with all the good things that the good people of the city were doing is there wasn't a plan. It wasn't a well-articulated plan. You mentioned Glendale. The difference with Glendale now is that we have a plan. The state is willing to come back to the table. There was some discussion about developing Glendale before, and that discussion fell apart because the numbers didn't work. Well, we went to the Treasury office, the state Treasury's office, when I came on board, and had a conversation about where we are positioned. And you mentioned this. We are in the best position for the best value of any community on the lakeshore. 40 minutes away from the fastest growing city, 5 minutes away from the fastest growing attraction, the beach. We are ideally situated. The state gave us $80,000 to go out and do a study, and you've heard me talk about that study, the target market analysis, that said, in fact, although the Glendale folks didn't think so, in fact, you could build 175 to 200 homes a year in Muskegon Heights and not meet the demand for Muskegon Heights. So that document is the reason why the state is coming back to the table with Glendale. But not only Glendale, but Lindbergh. Not only Lindbergh, but the opportunities that exist for development of the King School property. All of these are on the platform of the plan that was created from the target market analysis that we were able to have a conversation with the state about bringing into our community at their cost. Not at our cost, but at their cost. So that's a perfect example of a plan. We have a vision plan now that says this is what we're going to do to develop downtown. That vision plan is the platform that we used in order to go out and get that $30 million worth of grants, in effect. And so that plan is the impetus for us being able to do the development of Broadway from Glade to Getty. That $8 million ask for that that we put before the legislature is there because of that plan. The streetscape is there because of the plan. We have a grant for $150,000 to do design work. I'm sorry, $100,000 to do design work on Broadway, including Rowan Park, because of the plan. Because of the plan, the $250,000, $250,000 grant that we have to develop Rowan Park is because of the plan. The donation of the sculpture to the Rowan Park on Broadway is because of the plan. It all comes back to the target market analysis and the vision plan, both of which were funded. And you also mentioned one other thing I want to touch on is bringing businesses in, commerce, and industry, and the importance of that. Again, if we did not have a plan, nothing would be happening there. We received a $150,000 grant to go out and put together a industrial park, commerce park plan. And that, again, was a grant to address the issue that you brought up, which is very important. How do we bring businesses into the business sectors of our community? And that is money that is imported into Muskegon Heights that is being used to develop Muskegon Heights. That is, again, part of the plan. So all these things are moving.
Well, Mr. Bill, you also mentioned you mentioned ARPA monies. We still talked. Let's hit that again.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the small grants, the 150,000, the different things that we had. Spending money to make money.
Yep.
Spending money to make money is a part of that vision plan.
Can't make bricks without straw.
Because we were able to have this money. One thing about the city of Muskegon, and I have tons of respect for Frank Peterson and everyone down there. They bought into the city manager's vision. They bought into that you had to spend in order to make. And once they started spending, the money that was coming in superseded what they were spending. So they started having a surplus and constantly doing things, building, and the homes that they're building mean they're spending money that is making money for them now. And we got to continue to do that. Unfortunately, I don't gamble. My wife does. I don't gamble. All right. But I've learned as a businessman that I had to take a gamble in my business life. In order to be successful, I had to learn what it was that I needed to do when I needed to do it. And right now, we need to jump on board while the good is happening in Muskegon and in Muskegon time. If there was ever a right time, this is the time for Muskegon Heights to prosper. And we have the people. All we have to do is come together, unite it. We don't always have to agree, but we come together for the best interest of our citizens and talk things through.
Things that were already going on that are continuing to go on, except for to say, this is my contribution, is putting together a plan and bringing things together behind a plan. And I appreciate the former mayor, Mayor Sims, for starting the process of the vision plan.
Absolutely.
And putting that platform out there for me to be able to continue with it and run with it. But the key thing that I would have to say is my contribution has been putting together a plan. All these great things were already happening. Granted, we didn't have the grant funds, and those grant funds came because we put together the plan, but the people that are actually doing things, we're doing things now, have a foundation of which to operate with because we have a plan. And so sitting down with folks inside Muskegon Heights and outside Muskegon Heights and having those conversations about how we now have a vision, and how can we bring people alongside of us, behind us, with us, to make sure that that vision comes to reality, is exactly what Frank Peterson did when he was downtown. And he was spending money to make money behind the plan because they had a plan. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here in Muskegon Heights. And one of the residents here commented on here about reclaiming property. Our ability to reclaim property from Peck to Hoyt is going to be based on, and I use this word again, the foundation of the vacant building fee. We would not be in those properties if that the citizens of Muskegon, the vacant building fee, either you develop these properties or you pay a fee. And if you don't want to pay a fee, then develop these properties. So if you're not going to develop these properties, you're going to pay a fee, and if you don't pay that fee, it's going to be on your taxes. And since it's on your taxes, we can reclaim those properties. But the key is not to reclaim them, not to put liens on them. That's not, I mean, that's the consequence. The objective is to do something with those properties. And if you're not going to do something, then let the city do something. That would not be the case if we did not stand our ground on the vacant building fee. And that's a tool that we can use in order to affect change in our community today. And that's something that I appreciate our staff coming together and putting together and working on to make sure that we implement it across the board equally with all of the parcels in Muskegon Heights.
Mr. Bell, I like the way that you broke that down, because no, we don't want to reclaim any properties. The whole purpose is to bring home ownership to citizens of Muskegon Heights first and foremost, before all the outsiders come in and to claim in and to come in investing in those things. We want home ownership to be here. However, we had to do something. We had to set some boundaries and some guidelines. It is no different, and I say this with a lot of different penalties and things that have been talked about throughout the city. No one wants to penalize anyone from city council position. That is never the goal, never the intent. However, it's no different than a police officer providing you a ticket for speeding.
Mm-hmm.
If you speed, or let's use it for example, you park your car overnight on the street and you wake up the next day, your car is ticketed or towed. Don't blame anybody because of something that I didn't do. I didn't move my car. We have to understand these things are in place for a reason. And yes, at the end of the day, it is revenue that goes back to the city if you violate it. If you don't violate it, you don't pay it. If you build, reinvent, do your houses, there's nothing else you hear from the city but congratulations, and maybe get a letter of thank you and a letter of honor for beautifying your property and beautifying the land that you was received from the city.
Exactly. Exactly. So it should never be, it should always be the last resort when you have to resort to things of the nature like liens. One of the things that we are pushing forward on is limiting the water billing balances to no more than $500 or 30 days late. The delinquency that we have in our water filtration department and our plant has to be decreased. And that is one way for us to do that. We can't continue to have bills that are 6 months delinquent or in excess of $500. And that's going to be a process of recouping the money that is owed to the filtration plant, of shutting down accounts that are excessively late or high in value, and beginning to lien properties for the outstanding water bills. That is not the desire of the council. That is not the desire of my administration as a first resort. We would love to have people be in a position to pay for their water bills, be in a position to make sure that their accounts don't go into excessive delinquency. But we also have to have a mechanism in place that says that if you do, these are the consequences. The key is changing behavior.
Mr. Bell, Wow, you're giving our public some knowledge here that we have failed over numerous of years to really provide. Our water, you talk about that, but our citizens didn't know. Many of our citizens didn't know that our system that we have in place to collect water bills, we didn't have a system. There was nothing that was really in place to keep us abreast of the late fees or people that wasn't. So you had outstanding bills that was $1,000. You had outstanding bills that was $2,000. You had those things in place. So yes, now through some corrective action plans, now through some different and some long tough discussions with the management teams, there's a limit. Now you say there's $500. Because again, when some people don't pay their taxes, pay their bills, it wasn't going on there. All of a sudden, these water bills are $2,000. That is money that is not given back that the city don't recoup. And our citizens didn't know that. Many of them don't know it, and it wasn't shared that particular way for everyone to really get an understanding why our water rates was the way that they are. We only have 3,700 homes when we should be operating off 10,000 homes. We don't understand that we have 6 to 8 bins at the water filtration plant, and we're using 2. They don't understand that, but we are not using our filtration plants to the max. But the more houses we build, the more that we start utilizing the filtration plant the way that we want to. Let's get our bottled water in. I keep saying that. We got the lake.
Right. And we had a comment here from Ms. Matthews. She was asking what is the percent of home ownership versus rental properties. And you will go back and recall, if you had the opportunity to see the shows or come to council, that we set as a priority shifting the balance from 60% renter owned down to 35-40% renter owned. That is one of the challenges that we have. Those communities that prosper, those communities that thrive, have about a 35 to 40% renter occupation at the most. And so right now we're, depending on who you talk to, between 50 and 60%. And so it's our objective with this new housing development and building new houses. And I don't talk enough about rehabbing existing properties. I would rather rehab properties than tear them down, because if we tear them down, that means that they're not going to be on the tax rolls until we build them up. We already have 1,000 vacant lots to build on now. So when we max that out, then it's time to look at tearing things down. But until then, we need to look at these existing properties and see how we can rehab them and get them back on the market. And so that is an opportunity for us to shift people from renters to homeowners as part of this program of the 3 things: down payment assistance, credit repair, and mentorship. That's all about shifting us from 60% down to 35%. The other thing that was asked about was what the city is doing to help out seniors. And so I encourage anyone who knows seniors or is a senior citizen to contact Ms. Cook. She can be reached at 231-733-8880. She manages the senior millage program that addresses the issues and concerns of senior citizens, as well as those people who are below the poverty level or a certain percentage of the poverty level. But aside from those programs, Ms. Cook is the member of our leadership team that also can put people in connection to other organizations and groups that provide services. In particular, about taxes and the on-time payment of taxes, Mid-Michigan is one of those organizations that does that. I'm happy that the council allocated a certain amount of money in the ARPA to nonprofits coming into Muskegon Heights. If you're a nonprofit and you locate in Muskegon Heights, you have a physical presence here, then you are eligible for some of the funding that was set aside as a result of the council's approval of the ARPA $3.3 million. And so In addition to Mid-Michigan, who we're incentivizing and encouraging them to have a physical presence in Muskegon Heights, you also have MoCap, who is also a nonprofit locating in Muskegon Heights with the objective of providing services to our community, nonprofit services to our community. So those would be a couple of the ones that I mentioned. There are other nonprofits that are here that are providing services like Reed Muskegon, which is a fantastic contributor to a downtown area, but specifically around taxes. Mid-Michigan, Ms. Cook, those are the two areas that you want to hit for that.
Mr. Bill, also, if and it would behoove me to mention um, that the things that Mayor is actually putting some things together with the Lake Hawks in Flight Foundation. We're going to be offering some citizens, some of our older citizens, opportunities when the snowfall comes um, through a small grant, even that came through his work that we partnered with him on to be able to help shovel snow and do some things for our elders that may not be able to do it. So we're going to be putting some things together here shortly that's going to help some of our elders during the winter. Now, it's not a huge thing, but it's something that we can do to show our support back. And that was one of the things that Mayor had been wanting to do for a while. And good thing that we was able to partner up with the Lake Hawks in Flight to be able to make that happen. So I just wanted to make sure that that is also something for these winter months that we may be able to do. So people will be able to get information about that real soon. My administration will be able to get that stuff out to the city and to some of our citizens that may not be able to provide services for themselves.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that. We really do appreciate it. I know we're long on time here, so I do want to go ahead and wrap this up and I appreciate and thank you and the mayor for coming on board to talk about the importance of the budget and passing the budget. You know, folks don't realize that our finance department supports a position for accounts payable, a position for payroll, a position to handle benefits, a position to handle cash receipting, and a position to seek and gain revenue. All of those are positions or functions within our finance department for which we have nobody permanently hired to fulfill those positions. And so we have to work with the fact that the state has provided us with limited funding, but funding up to $150,000 for us to bring in Maynard to be able to do the work. But if not Maynard as a CPA firm to clean up our books, then who? There would be nobody, and we'd have nobody in the finance department. And as much as I would love to abandon my work as a city manager so I could focus on fixing the finance department, that's not feasible. So we need to rely upon the assistance of the services from the state, as well as the council's understanding that we need to fix what's going on with our finance department. We also have the assessors department that we're talking about. We've got that issue with a retirement there and the limited spending that we've done over the past there. We're fortunate enough to have the contract for that work. We have the water filtration plant. We have retirements that are there. I've been fortunate enough as a manager to be able to bring a solution together for that. And then DPW, that's another show altogether about the fact that we've consolidated utilities and DPW together, the cost savings associated with that, and the enhanced services. I mean, people were talking about the fact that roads were plowed for the first time. That's enhanced services, the result of the consolidation that we've done and the savings there. And I already talked a little bit about water filtration, but water billing is important. All these things come together, and they are aspects that will stop if we do not have the budget approved in 2023. So again, thank you for coming on board to share with us, Mayor Pro Tem Jenkins. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Reaching New Heights, because this is all about how we can reach a higher level in Muskegon Heights. That's what Reaching New Heights is. Every Wednesday, 2 p.m., where you get to know what you need to know so you'll be in the know. Be sure to tune in on the 27th at 4 p.m. for the next council meeting to be able to address the budget and hopefully pass the budget for 2023 so we don't have a shutdown on January 1. Thank you very much and continue to be blessed.